The Super Bowl is less than a week away as the Eagles get set to take on the Chiefs, while Tom calls it a terrific career with Brady hanging up the cleats. Hey everyone, welcome into another Sun Sports Roundtable. Rob Wong, joined alongside by Steve Simmons and John Kryk. And before we get to all the NFL stuff, guys, we must start with the NHL All-Star Game, which seemed to be underwhelming for many that witnessed it. It, of course, is coming to Toronto next year in 2024. Steve, you wrote about the All-Star Game this weekend in your notes column. At what point do we just do away with these things?
How about today? Let's do away with the NHL All-Star Game, with the NFL Pro Bowl, with the basketball, with the NBA All-Star Game. I think you can keep baseball in some format and dump all the rest of them because they're a waste of time. And as we saw with the Pro Bowl yesterday, John, pure junk.
Yeah, I mean, throwing water balloons, running around on the sidelines, mixing themselves up with cheerleaders. Like the whole thing was we like the gimmicks, it seems, if baseball, like you said, Steve, with regard to the All-Star Game in general. We like the gimmicks, the home run derby. That's all it is for me anymore. It's like, when's that on? Oh yeah, the night before. That's what the gimmicky things for baseball work, I think. And I could come up with more probably. But the All-Star games themselves, no. And then these over gimmicky things, no. They could have some legitimate contests, like how far can you throw it from your knees? I'd watch that with all the quarterbacks. But we get Tyler Huntley, a backup, who made it because so many players said no. That Pro Bowl was an embarrassment.
I think they're trying too hard, the leagues, because they know they really don't want these things, but for network obligations or for sponsor obligations, they have to do them.
Yeah. And
for years, the Pro Bowl was a big thing in Hawaii, and everybody got a trip to Hawaii, and that was kind of a nice way to reward players.
Good point.
But I just was involved with the NHL All-Star Game. The players weren't trying. The players didn't care. They were happy to walk along the beach and wear sunglasses and pose for photos. But when it came to anything to do with hockey, I mean, everyone went nuts over this Sarah Nurse goal that she scored on Shesterkin. He didn't move. He didn't try. I mean, it was, yeah, let's celebrate it. Wonderful. Way to go, Sarah. But, if he had actually tried, he stops that puck in about 2 seconds.
I think the Pro Bowl has it right. If they're going to have one, at the end of the season, I suppose maybe they, it's not too far away from when they're most recently playing, although it would be for, of course, hockey or basketball. But when you have it in the middle of a season, Steve, I don't know what your thoughts on this, but I've always thought it's almost like a punishment for those who make it. They don't get the 3 or 4 days off. They have to, quote unquote, still work.
Yeah, it's like the old Olympic thing. The players that get to go to the Olympics don't get any time off. The players who don't get to go to the Olympics get like 3 weeks off. Yeah. They get the real win out of that thing.
Right.
So Tom Brady, guys, has retired again, this time for good, it seems. Reports say he's got a pretty big broadcasting deal with Fox waiting in the wings. But for the NFL, John, who is set to step into Brady's shoes as the next face of the league?
Well, if you're looking at, an on-field, because of his performance face of the league, then, Patrick Mahomes kind of already is that, right? I mean, I always say with a lot of these types of things for popularity or for, how simple is it to determine whether that was a catch or not a catch? Ask a bunch of 10-year-old kids, go into any grade school, get about 30 kids together and say, anybody ever heard of Joe Burrow? You might have a couple of hands up. Anybody ever heard of Patrick Mahomes? Boom. I bet all the, half, if not more, of the hands would go shooting up. So he kind of already is the face of the league, if you will. But this past season, I did a little feature on, I called the old geezer bowls that we see for the last 10, 15 years, a lot of matchups in the regular season and playoffs involving players in their mid to late 30s, or in Brady's case, and Drew Brees toward the end, in their 40s. But you know what? Matt Ryan, after Aaron Rodgers, who's going to be the next oldest player in the league at age 40 this coming December, after Matt Ryan, there's gaps. Like, it's the next wave is the guys that started 11 years ago. The Kirk Cousins, the Russell Wilsons, those are, and Matthew Stafford, of course, is one other one. Those are going to be the next old geezers, and they're only going to be in their mid-30s. So if we're looking at an endurance standpoint as part of your criteria, then that mantle is kind of up in the air because Aaron Rodgers is going to play maybe one more year if.
The NFL is in a great place because it has Mahomes, it has Joe Burrow, It has Josh Allen. It has all these young 26, 27 and under quarterbacks. And they all are great. And they're all fun to watch. And they're all different. And I think that's the beauty of athletics or great athletes at their absolute peak or at the best. Each one is different. And each one defines the way he plays differently. Mahomes is not at all like Burrow. He's not at all like Allen. And yet all of them are fabulous to watch. And so whoever winds up carrying the most rings at the end of the career, I think it's going to be Mahomes, but it can be any of them.
And finally, guys, the Chiefs and Eagles set to square off in the Super Bowl on Sunday. Patrick Mahomes against Jalen Hurts, and maybe Hurts has a lot to gain here from a Super Bowl victory, guys. But Steve, who, in your opinion, with a victory on Sunday, will be vaulting to the next stratosphere?
Well, I'm going to start with the officials. They have had a dreadful season. They had a dreadful playoffs, and they're too often wearing the Kansas City Chiefs colors for some reason. I haven't figured that whole thing out. But the Chiefs don't get jobbed in any of these terrible calls that seem to happen every week and everywhere. So I'm hoping for the officials to have a great week and for a victory for somebody named Kelsey. And Mrs. Kelsey is going to be very happy because her son, who is a Hall of Fame tight end, will possibly win the Super Bowl, or her son, who's a Hall of Fame center, will win. Somebody in that family will come away with a Super Bowl victory, and good for them and happy for her.
Yeah. I almost look at it, guys, as who has the most to lose. Because I think for Philadelphia, it's all gravy. I don't think anybody thought they'd make it to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl this year, although a lot of people thought that they had a good chance of doing that. But it's their first one, right? They didn't even win a playoff game last year. In fact, the very first time that Jalen Hurts won a playoff game was 3 weeks ago. So, that's how new he is to this kind of postseason spotlight. But you look at Patrick Mahomes and especially Andy Reid. When Andy Reid was the head coach of the Eagles from 99 to 2012, his teams made 5 conference championship games, made it to 1 Super Bowl, and lost it. Well, now this is his 5th since taking over in Kansas City in 2013. He went to 5 championship games in a row now, made it to, this is the 3rd Super Bowl, but lost 1 of them. So if they lose this one, there's going to be a lot of people going, 10 conference championship games, Andy Reid, and only 1 Super Bowl win? That seems a little low when Bill Belichick won 9 Super Bowls out of 14 conference championship games with New England.
But one of the things you're going to find here, and we saw it with the Super Bowls that Tom Brady lost, we saw it in the Super Bowl that Mahomes lost, the physical football teams tend to win these kind of games. The Philadelphia Eagles are a physical, offensive, and defensive football team. Their lines are superb. Their sack numbers, how much pressure they put on. So this is really an interesting battle between a physical team and a finesse team. And how is that all going to play out, come Sunday?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we'll finally won't have to talk about it anymore as the game gets going on Sunday. As always, let us know your thoughts on these topics in the comments below. For Steve Simmons and John Kryk, I'm Rob Wong. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week on another Sun Sports Roundtable.